Hello friends, welcome to the class of international business. So, we will start from where we had left in the last lecture. In the last lecture we had started with international marketing, which is a part of again international business. So, although we are not going to go too deep into that, but at least we should have a slight idea, because when you talk about international business, international finance, international marketing, international human resource and international supply chain, they all feature into that, right. So, in the last lecture we discussed about why international marketing is important and how companies need to look into it. Then we talked about what is segmentation and how segmentation is important for a firm, right. Why does a firm need to segment the market, and then how it targets the market. And finally, we understood that after segmentation a company targets a few segments in the market, and because all targeting all is not possible, right. Then we learnt about positioning. So, we said what is positioning basically. In the last lecture when I had stopped, I had said that positioning is a kind of differentiation which a marketer creates by placing the product in the mind of the consumer in a certain way, right. For example, let us say there are so many toothpaste manufacturers in the country at the moment, but when I say Colgate, or when I say show you the packet of Colgate, right, I may not write even the name Colgate into that, but then still you understand this is a Colgate, right. When you see the bottle of Coca-Cola, you understand it is a Coca-Cola, right. So, the point is, when you talk about Coca-Cola, there is immediately the freshness that comes to your mind, right, a sense of happiness or freshness. When I talk about Amul, for example, then the thing of nationality comes into play, that is our own country's product, for example, right. When I talk about Colgate, then although Colgate, there is Procter and Gamble also manufacturing, there are Anchor, there are many other companies manufacturing toothpaste, but then when you talk about Colgate, that protective protection, that word protection comes into your mind, right. So, the way the companies are positioning, they want you to remember them by a certain manner, in a certain manner. So, that is what positioning is all about, right. And it becomes very important because today creating difference in the market is a very big challenge, right. If you cannot create this difference in the market, then people will not be able to figure out what to buy, and that might have a very negative effect on the company's profitability and sales. Okay. When you talk about international marketing, so the product now which was national is going international, right. So, that means today if we are manufacturing something in India, tomorrow we are trying to sell it in not only India, but also in other countries, for example, the European countries or other Asian countries, America, wherever it is, right. So, the product, which is one of the most important, the 4 P's of marketing, right, in the product mix. So, this becomes a very key challenge, because the point is what products you make is it going to be accepted in the other markets in the same manner, or they might not be accepted. So, if they are not accepted, what would you do? Would you like to change the product, or would you like to adapt to the local needs, or you would not like to do that? So, that depends on the company's goals and its objectives. Okay. For example, you see the word standardization, which is saying developing the same product for multiple countries. Now, if you can standardization has a very positive effect on the cost of manufacturing, because if we standardize a product, that is why there is a very famous statement made by Henry Ford, which said that you may make cars of any color you like, but they should all be in black. So, that says how important is standardization. So, when you standardize, the cost of production dramatically comes down. Okay. So, but the problem is it that easy that you can standardize? May not be, right. So, although every marketer wants to sell the same product in multiple countries, but it is not possible in all the conditions. Consumers share some common goals, values, belief and consumption patterns. So, accordingly the product needs also changes. Now, as I said, economies of scale and scope and the price competitiveness and uniform image is one important thing that is very important for any marketer to look at. For example, look at the Hollywood movies. Today, if Hollywood movies are selling in almost all countries, they are being seen in almost all countries. So, and in fact there are some movies which make more money than even a Bollywood movie, super hit movie, right. So, that means what? Now, the product has become acceptable in almost all the markets. So, the marketer does not need may not need to change. Now, for example, you see, suppose the language used is English and people would not have understood it. Now, if you go to a Japanese market, people might not watch the movie in the same language, they might have to change the language for them. So, but otherwise if you see, a Hollywood movie is as good as is highly standardized, right. Cosmetics, Revlon Cosmetics, Sony Television, Levi's Jeans, all these are examples where the company has reached some amount of standardization. Product adaptation. So, when you talk about international marketing, adaptation is a very key word. Modifying the product to reflect characteristics of the market. What is the advantage? Improved fit between the product and the consumer and expanded penetration. So, because of the you have adapted the product to the local needs. So, it helps in penetration of the product in the market. Look at this example. This is a very popular example given by almost all in almost lectures in marketing. McDonald's in India offers masala grilled veggie burger, Mac Aloo Tikki and Mac Veggie. All these have been customized according to the Indian needs, right. There is a very popular cases in the past when Coca-Cola came to India and IBM came to India. So, these companies were not accepted by the Indian government and they had to go back. There were different issues, right. So, many a times even there was a case of Siemens. This would be a more fitting example. When Siemens first time came to India, they were in a shock because they had just brought in their products as it is and they found that it was not working well in the Indian conditions. So, they had to readapt or redesign the product according to the Indian electrical conditions, Indian climatic conditions and then sell the product. Mandatory product adoptions. So, some product adoptions are compulsory for firms. For example, government regulations. Now, why does the firm have to adapt itself, right? So, there are government regulations. Now, safety issues in the automobile. Now, for example, now in some countries the safety issue differs from country to country, right. Some of the cars which are being sold in India, for example, would not get a permission in another market, right, as it is if it is taken, because the safety level is very low, right, in some of the Indian cars. So, testing and labeling in food items, it's in some countries it is mandatory that you write down every details about the food items, right, how it is being made, what are the different ingredients in it, everything. Warning on cigarettes is very important Indian as per the Indian government law, condition. So, the regulations also have to be seen, right. Technological considerations, as I gave the example of Siemens. So, what is the voltage, the infrastructure available in this country, accordingly the product has to be modified. Cultural imperatives, is it acceptable to the consumers? For example, when Kellogg's came to India at the famous story and they wanted to sell the product, it did not sell. The reason because the Indian habits of eating cornflakes is very different. Indians use warm milk instead of cold milk, but if you use warm milk, the crispiness of the cornflakes goes away, right. Similarly, when McDonald's came and they had a rift in the market because of the beef, right, issue, and Indians are largely a Hindu dominated country. So, there is a lot of people who do not eat beef or even they would even not talk about it. So, in such condition the cultural impact was very significant. Economic considerations. In Peru, this is a case, Unilever sells deodorants in aerosol cans, right, to the affluent customers, rich customers, and it sells cream sachets in small containers to the low income ones. So, in India also the same thing happened. When in India many companies they did not India at that time was not having a very the Indians did not have a high buying power, right, the purchasing power was not very high. So, in order to sell that products, the marketers came up with the concept of sachet, right. So, shampoos came, so people were not able to buy a bottle, so they would be given a 1 rupee 2 rupee sachet, right. So, everything oil, shampoos, even toothpaste, everything came in sachets, and that is how the entire market got revolutionized, right. Measurement standards, length, weight, volume, the quantity, right. All these have to be adapted as per the market. Now, once you have done with the product, so suppose the product is done and the product has been adapted to the according to the new market, the next important thing that comes is next as we say product, price. So, product, price, place. So, these are the 4 P's of marketing largely, right. So, the next is the pricing complexity. So, you are selling in a domestic market, you had the local knowledge, but the point is now you are selling in different markets. So, not only now the product also has to be changed, or if it is not changed also, there is a change in the currency, there is a change in the taxation rates, that everything is changing. So, how should the pricing be? Pricing is maybe can be easily considered as the most complex item when it comes to international business, right, or international marketing. Global pricing, it says, is one of the most critical and complex issues in international marketing, right. It must be low enough to generate sales, but high enough to achieve profit. So, if you make it too low and only to generate sales, maybe you are leaving out on the profit. If you make it very high to achieve higher profits, people will not buy. So, the how price sensitive are the people in this market, what is their buying power, the target customers whom you are targeting, who they are and how they are, it is very important to understand. Price is the only marketing mix instrument that creates revenues, that is very true, right. All other elements they entail cost. For example, it is through the price only that you are generating revenue. Product, you to make a product, the promotion, all these are to sell the product, and that is where you incur cost. A company's global pricing policy may make or break its overseas expansion efforts. Okay. Multinationals also face the challenges of how to coordinate their pricing across different countries. So, some of the problems that they face we will see, right. So, what are the drivers of the foreign market pricing policies? When you are getting into a foreign market, what are the drivers? What are the things you need to keep in mind? So, first of all, it starts with simple, the company's goal. What is the goal of the company? So, accordingly the price might get affected. So, suppose the company's goal is to make minimum profit, but to stay for a long time, or to make the maximum profit and to come out of the market. So, what kind of a goal do they have? Is it like make the profit as much as possible? Is it a penetration strategy or a skimming strategy? Skimming is to skim the profit, make the profit as much as possible. Penetration means to lower the cost, enter into the market, stay for a long time, and then compensate the profits through your volumes. Okay. So, what is the goal of the company? What is the demand of the consumer? Is the customer demand high for the product or not? So, what is the kind of demand and how sensitive are they to price? What kind of competition is available in the market which you have entered? For example, tomorrow we enter into the Nigerian market. Now, we do not know what kind of alternatives are available for the product. For example, when companies came to India, for example, in the toothpaste category. So, they found it surprising that Indians were never using toothpaste in the past. They were using charcoal, they were using some kind of herbs, they were using neem sticks. So, there were a variety of things they were using, but they were not using any company made product. So, at that time it was a challenge for them to even educate the people and change their habit from a natural thing to a company made thing. So, that was a big challenge to the marketers, and that time just imagine what would be the pricing policy. Somebody has never used the product and now you are asking him to use it for the first time, and if you charge high, he will never ever buy the product, may not be, right. How is the distribution channel? What kind of distribution channel exists in the market? So, that also affects your pricing policy. What is the distribution channel? For example, what is the length of the channel? Is it, for example, in some countries the length of the channel is very long, in some countries it is short. So, when it is short, you do not tend to spend lot of money, but when it is a long channel like in Japan and India, you spend lot of money on the channel, right. Every member of the channel has to be given some profit. Government policies, for example, when you talk about the policies, healthcare policies. So, the government has now made certain changes. For example, in healthcare, some of the pharmaceutical drugs and all, they have been made very cheap, so that the people in the country will not suffer, right. India, we use the MRP system, right. So, the retailers cannot cheat the customers, because we know in India the people are not well educated till today. There is a lot of uneducated people in India. So, in order not to cheat them, nobody could cheat them, the MRP has been in place. Market diversity. Now, very interesting, tuna eyeballs. Now, this is the tuna fish, there is a fish, the eyeballs is if it would be sold in the US, nobody would buy it, but that is a delicacy in Japan and China. So, the diversity of the market also plays a role in the pricing, right. So, this product, when it is a delicacy, so you can charge high, but suppose nobody is buying here, so nobody would pay high amounts for this, right. Country of origin stereotypes. Now, for example, from where does this product come, that also has an effect on the pricing. Now, if it is a Japanese or a let us say Italian French wine, for example, they would cost, automatically people will be ready to pay high. If it is a Italian leather jacket, people will be ready to pay high. If it is like a, for example, Japanese electronics, people will be ready. So, the point is there is a brand associated with the kind of products. So, accordingly the price can be changed. Then fluctuations in the currency. So, that also has a pricing impact on the pricing. So, every time when the currency value changes, it is becoming appreciating or depreciating, accordingly my cost also is changing. As my cost will change, though, that my price also might change, right. Then what are the different cost factors the company has to look into? For example, how much discount it has to provide to the customers. For example, India is an economy where people love bargaining, right. So, in such a condition, when they love bargaining, you have to offer some scope for bargaining, otherwise they will not buy, right. Deadlines, credit and payment terms, service, what kind of service do the people expect, and to provide that service how much of revenue cost is attached, training of the sales people. So, all these different factors also affect the marketing pricing policies. Okay. Now, what is price discrimination? Let us see. Price discrimination exists whenever consumers in different countries are charged different prices for the same product or for slightly different variation of the product, right. In a competitive market, prices may have to be lower than in a market where the firm has monopoly, right. Obviously, when it is a monopoly, it can charge anything. Example, you see, many automobile firms have long practiced the price discrimination in Europe. A Ford Escort once cost $2,000 more in Germany than it did in Belgium. So, Germany, it was costing more than in Belgium. This policy broke down when car dealers bought Escorts in Belgium and drove them to Germany, where they sold them at a profit for slightly less than Ford was selling Escorts in Germany. So, these practices are called price discrimination practices, but here this gives an opportunity for smuggling or to businessmen to take advantage, right. Another issue that comes in pricing is the predatory pricing. When you talk about international business and you move from one market to the other, so this situation arises. So, what is this predatory pricing? Predatory pricing is highly linked to dumping. You must have heard the word dumping, right, where a firm sells a product at a cost in another market at a lower value in another market than what it sells in its home market. That means, in the home market it sells at a higher price, and at another market it tends to sell at a lower cost. So, why does it do it? We will see. Predatory pricing is the use of price as a competitive weapon to drive weaker competitors out of the national market. Once the competitors have left the market, the firm then raise prices and enjoy high profits. There are two cases which I have brought, we will see both of them. One is a case where this is the Darlington Bus Wars case. Now, what happened here? Busways owned by Stagecoach, July 1994, a new entrant into the deregulated bus market, offered free bus travel to try and force the rival Darlington Bus Company out of business. So, this company Busways wanted the Darlington Bus Company to go out of business. Busways were also successful in attracting bus drivers from its rival by paying higher wages. For a time they offered free bus rides, attracting customers from their rivals. The result was that Darlington Transport Company DTC went out of business, leading to monopoly power for the remaining busways company. So, this was a case where predatory pricing helped the company busways to take over the market. But let us see another case how the market reacted. This was a case in the early 20th century. A German cartel means a group of people when they tried to do something with the intention, right. They would like to raise the price or lower the price, because in order to, because why they do it, it is a cartel, it is like a unified way they do it. So, that the customers do not have a choice to go to another marketer or another competitor, because everybody has now become a group and this group is trying to behave in a unified manner. So, the customer is always at loss, right. So, it is anti-competitive measure. So, German cartel that controlled the European market for bromine. Bromine is a chemical, right, an essential ingredient in many medicines as well as photography, right. They dumped bromine into the US. The German cartel dumped bromine into the US. But after some time, Dow Chemical, a very large US firm, exported competitively priced bromine to Europe, right. When they did it, the Germans, they retaliated, selling bromine in the US at below their manufacturing cost. So, they did a predatory pricing or a dumping act. Dow Chemicals did nothing, but responded by simply buying the bromine at the dumped price, at the lower price, and reselling it at profitably in Europe, right. So, by offering higher discounts, the incentives to the retailers and all, they rather capitalized on this, which allowed the company to strengthen its European customer base at the expense of the German cartel. So, sometimes it goes against the firm also, right. Another important point which we discuss about international business is transfer pricing. Now, what is transfer pricing? Transfer pricing happens when the sales transactions is between related entities of the same companies, right. It is used when individual entities of a larger multi-entity firm are treated and measured as separately run entities. For example, let us say Unilever India and Unilever, let us say UK, right. Now, they would be treated differently, right. So, multinational companies, what they do, they are treated separately, but what multinational companies do, they manipulate, they can manipulate in fact the transfer prices in order to shift the profits to low tax regions. So, this is a big issue. Let us see that this case, this example. For example, assume entity A which is in a high tax country, right, and entity B is in a low tax country. So, both are let us say the two parts of a same company ABC. So, these are subsidiaries of ABC only. So, A and B both are part of ABC. So, A builds and sells wheels and entity B assembles and sells it as final product like the bicycle. So, entity A may sell wheels to entity B through an intra-company transaction. So, this is a case of transfer pricing. If entity A offers entity B at a rate lower than the market value, what happens? Entity B will have a lower cost of goods sold and higher earnings than it otherwise would have, because now it is buying at a lower cost. So, the prices have come down. So, they can easily enter into the market and they can sell their product. However, doing so would hurt entity A's sales revenue, but you see why is then the company doing it? Because since A is in a high tax country and now it has a low sales revenue, so the tax would be less on this company, right. But it would benefit the organization as a whole for more of the company ABC, because the entity B's profit will increase and this is in a low tax country. So, when you look at the tax difference, so entirely the organization is going to get more, right. So, where the company will pay lower taxes. So, this is why transfer pricing also is a very critical issue or becomes a very critical factor when you talk about international pricing. Then we talk about international promotion. Now, you have understood international price. Now, what is international promotion? So, international promotion, as it says, you cannot just when you are trying to promote a product or try to advertise or create some interest in the consumer. So, we face certain challenges. So, the challenges could be like, for example, the government regulations. So, what is happening in this case, the government regulates what you can say and when you can say. For example, in China, for example, in my knowledge, what happens is the advertisements cannot be given in the middle of a program, right. So, as you see in India. So, what they do is they have to do it at the either at the beginning or at the end. So, this is why the companies many a times are not very satisfied. Okay. Another thing is, for example, in several countries there is a cultural issue. So, for example, in certain countries they think some of the advertisements of these clothing garments and all, they find lot of, they say it is a lot of nudity, right. So, they would revolt against it. So, in some countries, for example, especially in Asian economies, you find that the culture is very it is a very it is a different kind of culture, right. So, they do not allow too much of openness, and as you find in Europe. So, one has to understand this market and accordingly try to promote its product. If you try to do the same what you do, for example, in India till today people would not talk of, for example, same sex relationship. Now, but that may be much simpler to discuss it in Europe. Now, if some company makes a promotion accordingly and tries to use the same promotion in Asian economy, there might be a big uproar and people might just reject the product, right. So, there has been several cases, what I am saying related to the United Colors of Benetton. There is a very big, this company is a very big company, and how United Colors of Benetton has suffered, has gone through a lot of difficulties because of this reason. Critical element is in marketing is communicating, right. So, a number of communication channels are available to a firm, include direct selling, sales promotion, direct marketing and advertising. So, a firm's communication strategy, which is largely we are saying promotion, is partly defined by its choice of channel. So, what kind of channel does it use, and what is the cost and availability of media that it wants to use? Does it want to promote through a print media, television or internet, what it is using. So, communication is done for positioning of the product attributes in the consumer's mind. So, what are the barriers? As we discussed, there are cultural barriers. We say cultural barriers, source effect and noise levels. So, what they are? You see this example, Benetton, Italian manufacturer, ran into a cultural problem with its advertising. The company launched a worldwide advertising campaign with the theme United Colors of Benetton, right, that had won awards in France, but when the same ad was taken to US, they were attacked by the US civil rights groups for promoting racial domination, white racial domination. So, this is a cultural effect. Okay. Similarly, there is a source and country of origin effect. For example, this example you can see, sometimes it has a very positive also, sometimes it has a negative effect also, right. French wine, Italian clothes and Germany luxury cars benefit from universal positive source effect. This is an example, a wave of Japan bashing when Japan was at its supremacy swept the United States in the early 19s. So, worried that US consumers might view its product negatively, Honda responded by creating ads that emphasized the US content of its cars to show how American the company had become in due course of time, right. Then the next is noise level. What is noise level? Noise tends to reduce the probability of effective communication. It refers to the amount of other messages competing for a potential consumer attention. For example, if Colgate is there and there are 10 different companies also giving the ad in the same platform or channel, then there is a lot of noise and people might not remember that particular company, right. In highly developed countries such as the United States, already when there has been a lot of manufacturers and they who want to draw the attention of the consumer, the noise is extremely high, right. So, generally companies use either a push strategy or a pull strategy when they go into the different markets. So, same happens in the international business scenario, right. So, a push strategy emphasizes personal selling rather than mass media advertising. This is a push. So, they are pushing the product in the promotional mix. Although effective as a promotional tool, personal selling requires intensive use of a sales force. On the other hand, a pull strategy is to create a advertising to communicate the marketing message to the potential consumers, which will pull them towards the marketer. Finally, we talk about the advertising and culture, right, and here we talk about how different cultures and different advertising themes have different impacts. For example, the cultural dimensions which Hofstede had given, so they have an impact on how people react to a particular advertisements. So, we have gone through this, for example, power distance, individualism, masculinity and femininity, uncertainty. So, these are some of the different cultural traits, and according to these different cultural traits, the people react differently. Okay. For example, if power distance is low or high, so how do you promote in such a place? How do you suppose in India a ad is shown, for example, where a senior citizen would be treated like somebody just treats him like a equal, a young man treats him like a equal. Some people might take it as an offense, because in India the power distance is very high and seniors are given respect, right. So, but that is nothing wrong or right, that argument is different. Okay. So, everything depends on what kind of culture the people have of that place have. The final thing that is impacting the international business is in the international marketing is the global logistics and distribution. Now, when I talk about global logistics and distribution, what I am saying? So, global logistics and distribution have played a critical role in the growth and development of trade in the integration of manufacturing on a worldwide scale. So, as you see, as the firms operate on a global basis, logistics managers need to manage shipping of raw materials, components and supplies among various manufacturing sites at the most economical and reliable rates. So, how the global logistics and distribution affects the entire business, right, is also very challenging, because you see today when you think about buying a product which is not available in your local country, for example. Now, if you want to buy it, automatically then you have to shelve off, it has to be available. So, how does the manufacturer who is, let us say, in Italy or Germany or Belgium, Denmark, wherever it is, or Africa for that, how does it supply it to you? So, there has to, the supply chain system, the mechanism has to be very robust, otherwise it is very difficult to do it, right. So, we will continue this one from in the next lecture, right, and because today we have done enough, it is becoming, so the time is now coming to an end. So, we will stop it here. So, we will continue the logistics and distribution system in the next lecture, right. So, I hope you have understood what we discussed in the class, and thank you very much.